We don't take poor people to high-end places. You're staying home. Kate said those words to me while she put on her earrings in front of the hallway mirror. I stood paralyzed in the entryway of the living room, my apron still on, unable to believe what I had just heard. My daughter-in-law looked radiant in that wine-colored dress that fit her perfectly. Michael was standing right next to her, finishing adjusting his tie, not even looking at me, without saying a word. It was Friday night. They were getting ready to go to the most exclusive steakhouse in the city, the big family dinner we had been planning for weeks. Or at least, that's what I had thought. Because now, standing in front of them with my hands trembling, I realized I had never been part of the plan. I was never really invited. I was just the fool who handed over the money when Michael asked me for it 3 months ago. Kate turned toward me and looked me up and down with those cold eyes she always used when she wanted to hurt me. This is a place for people with class, Eleanor. We can't show up with you dressed like that. What are the important people there going to think? I tried to speak, but my throat was closed tight. I looked at Michael, searching for some sign of support, some word of defense, something that would tell me he didn't agree with this. But my son just checked his reflection in the mirror, running a hand through his hair, acting as if this conversation wasn't even happening. Michael. My voice came out weak, broken. I thought we were all going. You told me it was a family celebration. He sighed with annoyance, as if I were a problem he had to solve before heading out. Mom, we already talked about this. The restaurant has a very strict dress code. You don't have the appropriate clothes for that kind of place. But I can change. I can put on something else. It's not just about the clothes, Kate interrupted, as she grabbed her designer clutch from the sofa. It's about knowing how to behave, knowing which fork to use, knowing what to talk about with high society people. You just don't fit into that environment. And honestly, we don't want to be embarrassed tonight. The words hit me like stones, one after another, each one heavier than the last. Poor people. You don't fit in. Embarrassed. Everything I had been to them was summarized in that. I was an embarrassment they needed to hide. But that money, I tried to say, the money you asked me for. Michael, that money was for this dinner, wasn't it? My son finally looked at me. There was discomfort in his eyes, but there was also something else, something that looked a lot like indifference. Yes, Mom, and we appreciate it. That's why we're explaining this to you ahead of time. We don't want you to look ridiculous getting ready for nothing. Kate stepped closer to me. I could smell her expensive perfume, the same perfume I had bought her for Christmas. Look, Eleanor, I know this might sound harsh, but it's the truth. Tonight is important for us, for our image, for our future, and we need everything to go perfectly. No surprises, no uncomfortable situations. Uncomfortable situations, I repeated her words, unable to believe it. I am an uncomfortable situation. Don't take it personally. Michael was already at the door with the car keys in his hand. It's just for this one time. There will be other opportunities. But I knew it was a lie. I knew there wouldn't be other opportunities. I knew this wasn't just for this one time. This was what they really thought of me. This was what I represented to them. A nuisance, a burden, someone who needed to remain hidden. Kate walked past me without touching me. There's food in the fridge. Don't stay up waiting for us. We'll be late. She stopped at the door and turned around. Oh, and please don't tell anyone about this. We don't want people thinking weird things about us. The door closed. The sound echoed through the entire empty house. I stood there, in the middle of the living room, still wearing my apron, still with my hands shaking, still unable to fully process what had just happened. The house fell silent, a silence so dense I could hear my own ragged breathing. I listened to the hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of the wall clock, the creaking of the old floorboards. Every sound felt amplified in my loneliness. I walked slowly toward the living room window. Outside, I could see the car driving away down the street, the taillights disappearing into the darkness of the night, taking my son, taking my money, taking my dignity. My name is Eleanor Davis. I am 65 years old. I spent 40 years of my life cleaning other people's houses to give my son a better life. I worked until my hands were covered in calluses and my knees stopped working right. I sacrificed everything. My dreams, my youth, my health, all so that Michael could go to college, so he could have new clothes, so he would never lack for anything. And now I was here, alone in my own house, excluded from my own family, treated like trash by the very people who had everything thanks to me. I sat on the sofa. The same sofa where Michael used to fall asleep when he was a boy. The same sofa where I read him stories before bed. The same sofa where I had spent so many nights sewing his clothes so he would look presentable at school. Everything seemed so far away now, as if it had been another life, another Eleanor, an Eleanor who still believed that a mother's love was enough. The tears began to fall, silent, heavy, rolling down my wrinkled cheeks without control. I cried for the woman I had been, for the mother who gave everything without asking for anything, for the grandmother who hadn't even been considered. I cried for every sacrifice that now seemed to be worth nothing. But as I cried, while the pain split my chest open, something else began to move inside me. Something small, something that had been asleep for too long, a spark of rage. Not the rage that screams, not the rage that breaks things, but the cold rage, the rage that thinks, the rage that remembers. Because this hadn't been the first time. This hadn't been the first humiliation. It had only been the most direct, the cruelest, the most obvious. But there had been others, many others, small exclusions that I had justified, small lies that I had believed, small slights that I had ignored. And as the night fell completely over my empty house, while the silence wrapped around me like a heavy blanket, I knew that something had changed. Something had broken inside me, and I wasn't sure I wanted to fix it. I sat on that sofa for hours. I don't know exactly how many. Time seemed to have stopped. The house was dark except for the light from the street lamp coming through the window. I didn't move. I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat there, with the tears drying on my cheeks, while my mind started to remember things I had been ignoring for a long time. The first time Kate made me feel invisible was 2 years ago. It was Michael's birthday. I had baked his favorite cake, the same one I had made for him since he was a child, a homemade red velvet cake with cream cheese frosting. I had gotten up at 5 in the morning to make it perfect. When I arrived at their house with the cake in my hands, Kate opened the door and looked at me with that fake smile I knew so well. "Oh, Eleanor, you shouldn't have bothered." She took the cake from my hands without inviting me in. We already ordered a cake from the French bakery downtown. You know, something a bit more sophisticated for the celebration. She stood in the doorway, blocking the entrance. "The party is just for close friends. Nothing family-oriented. We'll celebrate some other time with you." I stood there on the porch with empty hands. But Michael told me to come at 7. Oh, must have been a misunderstanding. Kate was already closing the door. "We'll call you tomorrow, okay?" They never called. And when I asked Michael days later, he just said it had been a last-minute gathering with his business partners, that it hadn't been anything important. I believed him, or I wanted to believe him, because it was easier to believe it had been a misunderstanding than to accept that my own son had lied to me. Then it was Mother's Day last year. Michael had promised me we would spend the day together, that he would take me out to lunch somewhere nice. I got ready in my best dress, the light blue dress I had bought on sale years ago, but that still looked presentable. I did my hair carefully. I even put on a little lipstick. I sat in the living room waiting for him starting at 11 in the morning. I waited until 2 in the afternoon, then until 4, then until 6. The phone rang at 7 in the evening. It was Michael. His voice sounded cheerful, too cheerful. "Mom, sorry. Something came up last minute with Kate's parents. We had to go to brunch with them. You know how her family is. Very strict with traditions. But Michael, today is Mother's Day. You promised me." "I know, Mom. I know. I'll make it up to you next week. I promise." He never made it up to me. And I never complained. Because good mothers don't complain. Good mothers understand. Good mothers forgive. Or that was what I told myself every time my chest ached from his indifference. After that was Christmas. The Christmas where I had saved for months to buy them nice gifts. A watch for Michael. A leather purse for Kate. They weren't expensive designer things, but it was the best I could afford on my pension. I wrapped them carefully. I put on gold bows. I took them to their house on the morning of December 24th. Kate opened the door in a robe. Her hair was wet, as if she had just gotten out of the shower. "Eleanor, what a surprise." She didn't sound surprised. She sounded annoyed. "I didn't know you were coming today. Michael told me we were having dinner together on Christmas Eve." Like always. She stayed quiet for a moment. Then she sighed. Eleanor, this year we decided to spend Christmas alone. You know, start our own traditions as a couple. I hope you understand. Alone? But what about me? You can celebrate with your friends, with Susan or someone from the neighborhood. Don't stay alone. She took the gifts from my hands. Thanks for the thoughtful gesture. We'll open them later. The door closed before I could say anything else. I stood on the porch, in the cold afternoon of Christmas Eve, alone, empty-handed, heartbroken. I walked back to my house and spent Christmas Eve watching television, eating the leftovers of the dinner I had prepared, thinking they would share it with me. I never knew if they opened my gifts. They never thanked me. They never called to wish me a Merry Christmas. And then there were the times I called and they didn't answer. The times I texted them and they replied with one-word answers days later. The times I drove past their house and saw the car in the driveway, but when I knocked on the door, no one opened. The times I heard their voices inside, but they pretended not to be there. I got up from the sofa and walked to the kitchen. I turned on the light and poured myself a glass of water. My hands were still shaking. I opened the refrigerator and saw the food Kate had mentioned, a container with leftovers of something that didn't even look appetizing. That was what they had left me. Leftovers, because that was what I was to them, a leftover from their perfect life. I took my phone out of my apron pocket. I opened the photo app and started scrolling. There were photos of Michael and Kate at fancy restaurants, on trips to the beach, at parties with friends, all posted on their social media, all with perfect smiles and happy captions, and I appeared in none of them. I kept scrolling. There was a photo from 3 weeks ago. It was Kate's birthday. They were at a restaurant surrounded by people, everyone toasting, everyone laughing. I didn't know it had been her birthday. No one had told me. No one had invited me. And I used to always buy her a gift. I used to always bake her a cake. This year I didn't even know she had a birthday. More photos. A trip to the mountains 2 months ago. Michael had told me he would be busy with work, that he couldn't visit me that weekend. But there he was, smiling next to a bonfire, with Kate and a group of friends, lying, hiding from me. And then I saw the most recent photo. It was from a week ago. A dinner at Kate's parents' house. Family dinner, the caption said. Family reunited. But I wasn't there, because I wasn't family, not to them. I closed the phone and left it on the table. The pain in my chest was so intense I could barely breathe. All those times I had justified their absence. All those times I had told myself they were busy, that they had their own lives, that it was normal for children to drift away. It had all been a lie. They weren't busy. They simply didn't want to be with me. I sat back down at the kitchen table, the same table where I had prepared thousands of meals for Michael, the same table where I had helped him with his homework while struggling with the math problems myself, the same table where we had eaten breakfast together every morning for 18 years. Now that table only reminded me of everything I had lost. I thought about all the times Kate had made comments about my clothes. Eleanor, you should update your wardrobe. Those dresses are very out of style. Or about my house. This part of the neighborhood isn't what it used to be. You should think about moving to something smaller. Or about the way I spoke. Eleanor, when we're in public, try not to talk so much about your cleaning work. People aren't interested in those kinds of things. I always stayed quiet. I always nodded. I always tried to change to please her, because I thought if I did everything right, if I tried hard enough, she would accept me. They would accept me. But now I realized it had never been enough. It never would be. Because the problem wasn't me. The problem was that they were ashamed of me. I looked at the wall clock. It was 10 o'clock at night. They must be at the steakhouse right now, sitting at some elegant table, eating expensive food, laughing with important people, while I was here, alone, excluded, forgotten, with the money I myself had given them 3 months ago. That money, $3,000 I had saved for years. Every dollar earned with my sweat, with my hands cracked from scrubbing floors, with my knees aching from kneeling to clean other people's bathrooms. Michael had told me he needed it for an important investment, that it was urgent, that he would pay me back soon. I gave him everything without asking questions, because you don't say no to your children, because mothers give without expecting anything in return. But now I knew the truth. That money hadn't been for any investment. That money had been for this dinner, for this luxurious celebration from which I was excluded. My own money was paying for my humiliation. I got up and walked to my bedroom. I opened the drawer of my nightstand and took out the notebook where I kept my accounts. I turned the pages with trembling hands. Everything was written down there. Every dollar I had lent Michael in the last 5 years. $2,000 for the down payment on the car. $5,000 for the renovation of his house. $1,000 for his vacation last year. And now these $3,000 for the dinner. $11,000 in total. $11,000 he had never paid back. $11,000 he probably never would pay back. Because children don't pay mothers back. Because mothers are supposed to give out of love, not expecting anything in return. I closed the notebook and put it back in the drawer. The tears fell again. But this time they weren't just tears of sadness. They were tears of rage, of helplessness, of disappointment, of all the pain accumulated over years finally finding an exit. I looked at myself in the vanity mirror. I saw a 65-year-old woman with a tired face, with deep wrinkles around her eyes, with gray hair poorly combed, with old and worn-out clothes. I saw the woman Kate saw, the poor woman, the embarrassing woman, the woman who didn't fit in. But I also saw something else. I saw the woman who had survived 40 years of hard labor, the woman who had raised a son alone, the woman who had sacrificed everything for love, and that woman didn't deserve this. That woman was worth more than the treatment she was receiving. I stood in front of the mirror for a long time, looking at that tired woman staring back at me. A woman who had allowed all of this. A woman who had accepted every humiliation with her head bowed. A woman who had believed that unconditional love meant allowing anything. I turned off the light in my room and went back to the living room. I sat on the sofa again and let the silence wrap around me. But this time the silence was different. It wasn't the silence of pain. It was the silence of clarity. The silence that comes when you finally stop lying to yourself. They had erased me from their lives. Not all at once. Not with a fight. Not with harsh words. They had done it slowly. With small lies. With credible excuses. With promises they never kept. They had been erasing me like erasing an old drawing. With patience. With care. Until only the blank paper remained. And I had let them do it. I had justified every lie. I had forgiven every oversight. I had swallowed every slight. Because I was afraid. Afraid of being left alone. Afraid of losing the only son I had. Afraid of admitting that maybe my sacrifice had meant nothing to him. I picked up my phone again. I opened the photo gallery. But this time, I didn't look for photos of Michael and Kate. I looked for my own photos. The photos of my life before they decided I was an embarrassment. There I was at 25. Young. Smiling. With baby Michael in my arms. His father had just left. He had left me alone with a 6-month-old child and without a dime in my pocket. But I was smiling in that photo. Because I had hope. Because I believed everything would turn out okay. Another photo. Michael, at 7 years old, on his first day of school. I was crouching next to him. My cleaning uniform was peeking out from under the sweater I had put on to take him. I had missed work that morning to accompany him. I lost that day's pay. But I didn't care. Because my son needed me. More photos. Michael at his high school graduation. Me standing proudly beside him in my best dress. The same dress I had worn to 3 weddings and 2 baptisms because I didn't have money to buy another one. But I was happy. Because my son was graduating with honors. Because all the effort had been worth it. The last photo we had together was from 2 years ago. On my 63rd birthday, Michael had come to visit me. Alone. Kate had stayed behind because she had a headache. Or that's what he said. We were sitting in this very living room. I had made my own cake. A simple vanilla cake. Michael looked uncomfortable in the photo, as if he wanted to be somewhere else. That had been the last time we had spent time alone. The last time I had felt I was still his mother. After that, everything changed. The visits became shorter, the calls rarer, the excuses more frequent, and I just watched him drift away without being able to do anything to stop him. I put the phone aside and closed my eyes. I took a deep breath. The pain in my chest was still there. But there was something else. Something that looked like acceptance. A bitter but necessary acceptance. My son had abandoned me. Not physically, but emotionally, he had cut all ties with me. And Kate had only accelerated a process that perhaps had already begun before. Maybe Michael had always been ashamed of me, of my job, of my humble house, of the way I spoke, of everything I represented. And Kate had simply given him permission to act on what he already felt. I got up from the sofa. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. My legs were shaking, not from sadness, but from something different, something that felt like waking up from a long dream. A dream where I had been the perfect mother and he had been the grateful son. But that dream had never been real. I opened the drawer where I kept important documents. I took out the manila envelope where I had all the papers for the house, the deed, the payment receipts, the documents that proved this house was mine, completely mine, paid for with my work, with my effort, without anyone's help. I also took out the bank statements, the extracts showing every transfer I had made to Michael in recent years. $11,000 in total, $11,000 he had never mentioned paying back, because to him that money was a gift, or worse, it was my obligation. Because mothers must give, always give. I put all the papers on the table and looked at them. There was my entire life summarized in documents, a life of honest work, of constant sacrifice, of unconditional love, but also a life of being taken for a fool, of being used, of being discarded when I was no longer convenient. The phone vibrated on the table. It was a text from Susan. "Eleanor, are you okay? I saw lights on in your house. Do you need anything?" Susan. My neighbor for as long as I could remember. The only person who seemed to notice my existence lately. The only one who asked how I was. The only one who worried when she didn't see me in the garden in the mornings. I replied, "I'm fine, Susan. Just up late. Thanks for asking." She answered immediately, "If you need company, knock on my door. I don't mind." I smiled. A sad but genuine smile. Susan was worth more than all the family I supposedly had. Susan treated me with respect, with affection, with the dignity my own son denied me. "Don't worry. I'm okay. We'll talk tomorrow." I put down the phone and looked at the documents on the table again. $11,000, my house, my savings, everything I had in this world, everything I had built alone, without help, without support, just with my hands and my will to keep going. And suddenly something clicked in my mind. An idea. Small at first, but it kept growing, becoming clearer, stronger, more necessary. I had power. Maybe not the power of abundant money, maybe not the power of social standing, but I had the power of the truth, the power to say enough, the power to stop letting them trample on me. I picked up my phone again and opened the chat with Michael. The last message was from a week ago. I had asked him if he would come visit me over the weekend. He had replied with a brief, "Can't, busy." And I had replied, "Don't worry, son. I understand." But I didn't understand anymore. I didn't want to understand anymore. I wasn't going to keep justifying the unjustifiable. I typed a message. "Michael, I need to talk to you tomorrow. It's important." I didn't send it yet. I stared at the words on the screen, thinking, calculating, planning. I deleted the message. It wasn't time yet. First, I needed to think. I needed to be sure of what I was going to do. I needed to be sure I was ready to face what would come next. I sat back down at the table. I took a sheet of paper and a pen. I started writing, noting down, organizing my thoughts. Every humiliation, every lie, every broken promise, every dollar lent and never returned. Everything was written on that paper. It wasn't to show anyone. It was for me, to have clarity, to not let myself be convinced by pretty words when I finally had to confront them. Because I knew Michael. I knew his ability to make me feel guilty, his way of twisting things so it seemed like I was the one exaggerating. But this time it wasn't going to work. This time I had everything clear, everything documented, everything in my mind in an orderly and precise way. I finished writing and folded the paper. I put it in the drawer along with the important documents. I looked at the clock. It was 11:30 at night. They must still be at the restaurant, enjoying themselves, laughing, spending my money, Celebrating without me, I walked to the window. The street was dark and empty. Only the sound of crickets broke the silence of the night. The cold air came through the cracks of the old window. I needed to fix that, but I never had enough money for repairs, because I was always giving money to Michael for his important things. I thought about all the things I had stopped doing for myself. The dentist I hadn't seen in 2 years because I didn't have the money. The new glasses I needed but kept postponing. The blood pressure medicine I sometimes didn't buy in full because it was too expensive. Everything I had sacrificed to be able to give more to him. And he paid me by excluding me, by being ashamed of me, by treating me as if I were an old piece of furniture that no longer serves a purpose but can't be thrown away either. I felt the rage rising in my throat again. But this time I didn't swallow it. I let it be. I let it grow. Because that rage was righteous. That rage was necessary. That rage was the only thing that would make me act instead of continuing to accept. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet. I didn't have a full plan. But I knew something had to change. That I had to change. That I couldn't keep being the Eleanor who put up with everything. The Eleanor who forgave everything. The Eleanor who settled for crumbs of her son's love. I stepped away from the window and turned off the house lights. I went up to my room. I lay on the bed without changing my clothes, staring at the ceiling in the darkness, thinking, planning, waiting for tomorrow to arrive. Because tomorrow everything would be different. Tomorrow I would start recovering my dignity. Tomorrow I would stop being invisible. And they were going to have to see me, whether they wanted to or not. I woke up early, earlier than normal. The light of dawn was barely entering through my bedroom window. I had slept little, maybe 3 or 4 hours, but I felt strangely awake, alert, as if my body knew something important was about to happen. I got out of bed and headed to the kitchen. I made coffee, the same coffee as always, but this morning it tasted different. Or maybe I was the one who was different. I sat at the table with the hot cup between my hands and looked out the window. The neighborhood was starting to wake up. Mr. Ramsey was taking out the trash. Mrs. Lucy was watering her plants. Everything remained the same, but I had changed. I was about to get up when I heard the sound of a car parking in front of my house. I looked at the clock. It was 7:30 in the morning, too early for visitors. I peeked out the window and saw a black car I didn't recognize. A man in a suit got out of the vehicle. He was carrying a briefcase. He walked toward my door with sure steps. The doorbell rang. My heart started beating faster. I wasn't expecting anyone. I walked to the door and opened it cautiously. The man in front of me was around 50. Gray hair, well-groomed, serious face, but not threatening. "Good morning, Mrs. Eleanor Davis." I nodded without saying anything. My throat was dry. "My name is Mr. Thompson. I am an attorney. May I come in? I need to speak with you about an urgent matter." A lawyer. At my door. At 7:30 in the morning. None of this made sense. An urgent matter? What kind of matter? "It has to do with your son, Michael Davis, and certain documents that have come into my possession." His expression was grave. "It is important, ma'am. Please." Something in his tone made me step aside. He entered, and I closed the door. I guided him to the living room. He sat on the sofa and opened his briefcase. I sat across from him with my hands shaking. "Mrs. Davis, what I'm going to tell you might be difficult to hear, but I need you to listen carefully." He took a folder out of the briefcase. 3 days ago, a client of mine passed away. A man named Robert. Does that name ring a bell? I shook my head. I had never heard that name in my life. Robert was a businessman, quite successful, and in his will, he left very specific instructions. He opened the folder and took out several documents. It turns out Robert knew your son Michael very well. They were partners in a real estate investment business. Partners. Michael had never told me anything about being anyone's partner. He had never spoken to me about real estate investments, Mr. Thompson continued. "The problem, Mrs. Davis, is that the business was founded with money that did not belong to your son. Money he obtained fraudulently." The words hit me like rocks. Fraudulently. My son. It couldn't be true. "What are you saying?" Mr. Thompson looked at me with compassion. "Your son has been using your identity to apply for loans. Large loans, using this house as collateral without your consent. The world stopped. The house, my house, the house I had paid for over 30 years, the house that was the only thing that truly belonged to me. That is impossible. I never signed anything. I never authorized. I know, ma'am. That is why it is fraud. Robert discovered this 2 months ago. And before dying, he left instructions for me to contact you. He wanted you to know the truth. He took more papers out of the folder. Here are copies of the documents. 3 different loans. All using this property as collateral. All with your forged signature. I took the papers with trembling hands. There it was. My name, my address, my signature. But I hadn't signed that. I had never seen those documents in my life. This totals $85,000, Mrs. Davis. $85,000 in debt that is in your name. If it isn't paid, the bank can take the house. I couldn't breathe. $85,000, my house at risk, my son, my own son had done this. Why? Was all I could say. Why would he do this? Mr. Thompson sighed. According to what Robert told me, your son lives well beyond his means. The luxury car, the renovated house, the expensive restaurants. He maintains all of that with borrowed money. And when he could no longer get loans in his name, he used yours. The tears began to fall. But this time, they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of rage, of betrayal, of a pain so deep it had no name. And why are you telling me this? What do you gain from this? Robert was a complicated man. But he had principles. When he discovered what Michael had done, he wanted to protect you. Before he died, he paid off 2 of those debts. $25,000 remained pending. He took out another document, and he left this fund to cover that amount, but only if you agree to confront your son. If you agree to report him legally, report him, my own son. The word sounded impossible. I can't do that. He's my son. Mrs. Davis, if you don't do something, you will lose your house. And your son will keep doing this. He will keep using other people. He will keep lying. He will keep destroying lives. Mr. Thompson leaned forward. Robert wanted to give you a way out, but you need to act. I stayed silent, looking at the documents, reading the numbers. $85,000. My house mortgaged without my permission. Years of monthly payments I had never made, but that were recorded in my name. Everything was a lie. Everything was fraud. And my son was responsible. How much time do I have to decide? The payments are due in 3 weeks. If they aren't covered, the foreclosure process will begin automatically. Mr. Thompson closed the folder. I know it is a lot to process, but I need you to understand the gravity of the situation. He got up from the sofa. He took a card from his pocket and handed it to me. This is my number. Call me when you are ready to talk, but don't take too long. Time is ticking. I walked him to the door. He left without saying anything else. I closed the door and stood there, with the card in one hand and the documents in the other, feeling my world crumble completely. I walked back to the living room like a zombie. I sat on the sofa. I opened the documents and started reading them one by one. Each page was worse than the last. Loans applied for 2 years ago, payments never made, accrued interest, threats of foreclosure, all in my name, all without my knowledge. And then I saw something that chilled my blood. In one of the documents, there was an email address, an account that was supposedly mine but that I had never created. And there was a phone number, a number that wasn't mine. Michael had created a fake identity in my name. He had forged my signature. He had used my data. And he had done it all while looking me in the eyes and calling me Mom. I picked up my phone with trembling hands. I dialed Michael's number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. Finally, he answered. His voice sounded tired. He had probably gotten in late last night from the restaurant. Mom, what's up? It's really early. I didn't know where to start. The words got stuck in my throat. Michael, I need you to come to my house. Now. Now? Mom, I just fell asleep 2 hours ago. Can't it wait? No, it can't wait. Come now, or I'm coming to your house. There was silence on the other end. Are you okay? You sound weird. Come. Now. I hung up before he could say anything else. I sat on the sofa, looking at the documents, waiting. Time seemed to pass slowly. Every minute was an eternity. Every second gave me more time to think, to process, to feel the rage growing inside me. 40 minutes later, I heard the car park. The driver's door opened, footsteps on the path, the key turning in the lock. Michael entered. He was wearing a wrinkled t-shirt and sweatpants. He looked disheveled, annoyed. "Mom, what is so urgent that it couldn't wait?" I said nothing. I just handed him the documents. He took them with a confused expression. He started reading, and I saw his face change. First confusion, then recognition, then panic, then calculation. His eyes moved rapidly over the pages. His hands began to tremble slightly. "Mom, I can explain." "Explain." My voice came out colder than I expected. Firmer. Stronger. He put the documents on the table. He ran his hands through his hair. "It's complicated. I was going to tell you, but I couldn't find the right moment." "You couldn't find the right moment to tell me you mortgaged my house without my permission? That you forged my signature? That you put me in debt for $85,000? It's not that simple. I needed that money for an investment that was going to make us all a lot of money. I was going to pay you. I was going to pay it all back." "When, Michael? When were you going to pay it back? Before or after they took my house?" He stayed silent, looking at the floor, like a child caught in a lie. But he wasn't a child. He was a man of almost 40 who had betrayed his own mother. Michael remained standing in front of me, head down, speechless. The silence between us was so heavy I could feel it pressing against my chest. I waited. I waited for him to say something. Anything that could explain the inexplicable. "Mom, He started but stopped. He sat on the sofa across from me and covered his face with his hands. Everything got out of control. I thought I could handle it. Handle it. My voice came out louder than I intended. "Handle it? Michael, you forged my signature. You used my house without my permission. You put me at risk of losing everything, and you call that handling it? It was a safe investment. Robert promised me. He said, in 6 months we'd have double the money. I was going to pay you everything, with interest. You were going to be better off than ever. Robert is dead, Michael, and he left instructions for his lawyer to contact me, because he knew what you had done. He knew it was fraud." Michael raised his head sharply. His eyes were red. "Mr. Thompson came here? What did he tell you?" "He told me the truth, something you have never done." I got up from the sofa and started pacing, like a caged animal. "Mr. Thompson doesn't know anything. He just wants to cause trouble. Robert and I had an agreement, a private agreement. An agreement that included using my property without my consent?" I picked up the documents from the table. "Here is everything. 3 loans, $85,000, my signature on each one. A signature I never wrote. I was going to tell you, I swear. But everything happened so fast, and then things didn't go as expected. The market crashed. The investments were lost. And when I wanted to fix it, it was already too late." "When, Michael? When were you going to tell me? When they came to take my house? When they left me on the street?" "I never would have allowed that," he shouted. But his shout sounded desperate, not convincing. "I would have found a way to pay it. I always find a way. Like you found a way to pay me the $11,000 I lent you? Like you found a way to include me in the dinner last night that I paid for myself?" He stayed silent. His eyes avoided mine. "Did you think it wouldn't hurt me, Michael? Did you think you could use me, lie to me, steal from me, and I would just accept it because I'm your mother? I didn't steal from you. I just borrowed. It's different. It's not different. It is theft. It is fraud. It is betrayal." The tears began to roll down my cheeks. "I gave you everything. Everything I had. Everything I was. And you paid me back by destroying me." "Don't be dramatic, Mom. No one is destroying you." Those words were like a slap in the face. I wiped my tears with the back of my hand. "You're right. No one is destroying me, because I'm not going to allow it anymore." I got up from the sofa. I walked to the kitchen and pulled out the drawer where I kept all my important documents. I came back with another folder. I put it on the table next to the documents Mr. Thompson had brought me. "What is that?" Michael asked suspiciously. "It's everything. Every loan I gave you, every promise you made me, every lie you told me." I opened the folder. $11,000 in the last 5 years. Money you never paid back. Money you asked for emergencies that never existed. Michael looked at the papers without saying anything. And here are the bank statements. The transfers. All documented. All with date and time. I took out more papers. I also have the messages. The conversations where you promised to pay me back. The excuses. The lies. What do you intend to do with that? I intend to protect myself. I intend to ensure you can never hurt me again. He stepped closer to me. His expression changed. He was no longer the ashamed son. He was the calculating man. The man who had learned to manipulate. Mom, think about what you're doing. If you make this public, if you report me, you'll ruin my life, my reputation, my marriage. Your reputation is a lie. Your marriage is built on the money you stole from me. And your life is already ruined. You just don't know it yet. And what about you? If this comes to light, everyone will know your own son scammed you. How do you think they'll see you? Do you think you'll have any dignity? His words sought to hurt me, sought to make me feel small. But they didn't work anymore. My dignity doesn't depend on what others think. It depends on what I do now. I took my phone and called Mr. Thompson. He answered on the second ring. Mr. Thompson, this is Eleanor Davis. I accept your help. I want to proceed with everything. Michael went pale. Mom? No. Please. We can fix this between us. We don't need lawyers. Mr. Thompson, my son is here. You can come now. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I hung up the phone. Michael looked at me with a mixture of fear and rage. This is a mistake, Mom. A mistake you're going to regret. The only mistake I made was trusting you. It was believing that a mother's love was enough. It was thinking that if I gave you everything, you would love me. I do love you. No, you don't love me. You use me. There is a difference. He let himself fall onto the sofa. He put his hands over his face. What's going to happen now? Now you are going to face the consequences of your actions. You are going to sign documents acknowledging the fraud. You are going to pay back every cent. And you are going to stop lying. I don't have that money. I can't pay you. Then you will sell whatever you have to sell. The car, the things in the house, whatever is necessary. I took the documents from the table. And if you don't do it voluntarily, Mr. Thompson will make sure you do it legally. Kate is going to kill me. If we sell the car, if I pawn things, she is going to. Kate. I repeated the name with bitterness. She knows what you did. Michael didn't respond, but his silence was answer enough. She knew. She knew you were stealing from me, and she said nothing. Maybe she even encouraged you to do it. Kate has nothing to do with this. Kate has everything to do with this. She convinced you that I was an embarrassment, that I didn't deserve respect, that I was just a source of money you could exploit. It's not like that. No? Then explain to me why last night I was told I couldn't go to a dinner I paid for myself. Explain to me why I was treated like trash, as if I were worth nothing. Michael stayed quiet, looking at the floor, defeated. The doorbell rang. It was Mr. Thompson. I opened the door and he entered with his briefcase. He looked at Michael and then looked at me. Mrs. Davis, are you sure about this? Completely sure. Mr. Thompson took documents out of his briefcase. He put them on the table. These are the papers we need you to sign, Mr. Davis. Acknowledgement of debt, commitment to pay, and waiver of any claim on your mother's property. Michael looked at the papers without touching them. And if I don't sign, then we will proceed legally. Fraud, forgery of documents. You could face between 5 and 10 years in prison. This is extortion. No, Mr. Davis. This is justice. You committed a crime. Now you must answer for it. Mr. Thompson pushed the papers toward him. You can do it the easy way or the hard way. You decide. Michael took the papers with trembling hands. He read them slowly. Each page seemed to weigh on him more than the last. Finally, he looked up at me. If I sign this, will you forgive me? The question broke my heart. But I was no longer the Eleanor who forgave everything without consequences. If you sign this, I give you the opportunity to correct your mistake. Forgiveness will come later, when you prove you deserve it. He took the pen Mr. Thompson extended to him. His hand shook as he signed every document, one by one, acknowledging his guilt, committing to pay, waiving any right to my property. When he finished, Mr. Thompson gathered the papers and put them in his briefcase. You have 6 months to pay the remaining debt. If you do not, we will proceed with the seizure of your own assets." Michael nodded without saying anything. He got up from the sofa, walked toward the door. He stopped and looked at me one last time. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry too, Michael. Sorry you let it get to this point. Sorry I didn't teach you better." He left the house without saying another word. Mr. Thompson waited for him to leave and then turned to me. "You did the right thing, Mrs. Davis. I know it was difficult, the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. But now you are protected, your house is safe, and your son will have to learn to be responsible." He took another document out of the briefcase. "This is the proof of the payment Robert made before passing away. $60,000 are covered. Your son owes the remaining $25,000. I took the document. $60,000. A man I didn't even know had paid my debt, while my own son had created it. Why did Robert do this? Why did he help me?" Mr. Thompson smiled sadly. "Robert had his own demons, but at the end of his life, he wanted to do something good. He wanted to protect someone innocent. You were that person. He handed me a letter. He left this for you. He said to read it when everything was over." Mr. Thompson said goodbye and left the house. I stayed alone with the letter in my hands. I opened it with trembling fingers. The handwriting was clear, firm. "Dear Mrs. Davis, we do not know each other, but I knew your son, and I saw what he did to you. I saw how he used you, how he lied about you, how he was ashamed of the woman who gave him everything, and I couldn't stay silent. This money doesn't erase what he did, but I hope it gives you peace. I hope it gives you the strength to defend yourself, because you deserve respect, you deserve dignity, you deserve true love, not the fake love your son offers you. With admiration, Robert." The tears fell on the paper, but this time they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of relief, of gratitude, of hope. A stranger had seen me, had valued me, had protected me, more than my own son had ever done. I folded the letter carefully. I kept it together with all the documents. My house was safe, my future was protected, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. The following days passed in a strange calm. Michael didn't call, didn't write, didn't show up at my house. It was as if he had disappeared from my life completely. And for the first time in a long time, that silence didn't hurt me. It gave me space to think, to plan, to decide what I would do next. I spent the mornings organizing all my documents, every paper, every receipt, every piece of evidence of what had happened. I kept them in separate folders, everything ordered, everything clear. Mr. Thompson had advised me to keep copies of everything, and I followed his advice to the letter. Susan came to visit me on Wednesday afternoon. She brought a lemon cake she had made that morning. She sat with me in the kitchen and poured me coffee without asking anything. But I knew she was curious, that she had noticed Mr. Thompson's car, that she had seen Michael leaving my house with a distraught face. "Are you okay, Eleanor?" she finally asked. I looked her in the eyes, those kind eyes that only wanted to make sure I was okay. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't lie. "No, I'm not okay, but I'm going to be. Do you want to talk about it?" I told her everything, every detail, every lie, every betrayal. Susan listened to me in silence, without interrupting, without judging. When I finished, she took my hand in hers. "That boy doesn't know what he has. He never knew. It doesn't matter what he knows or doesn't know anymore. What matters is what I know now. And what are you going to do?" "I am going to recover my dignity. I am going to make sure this never happens again." Susan nodded. "If you need anything, anything at all, just tell me. You are not alone in this." Her words filled me with warmth, the warmth I should have received from my own family, but only found in a neighbor, in a true friend. Thursday morning, Mr. Thompson called me. "Mrs. Davis, I have news. Michael has started selling some things. He put the car up for sale, and he is trying to get a personal loan to cover part of the debt. And Kate, she knows." There was a pause. "From what I understand, she is furious, very furious. She has been calling Michael all kinds of names. She says he ruined her life. Of course, Kate only cared about herself, about her image, about her lifestyle, Not about the damage they had caused. Not about the mother they had betrayed. Good. Let her face the consequences. There is something else, Mrs. Davis. Kate has been making calls, trying to get money from her own family. It seems her parents have resources. They could help pay the debt faster. As long as they pay what they owe, I don't care where the money comes from. Understood. I will keep you informed of any developments. I hung up the phone and stood there thinking. Kate asking her family for help. Kate humiliating herself in front of her parents. Kate having to explain that her husband had committed fraud against his own mother. There was a certain poetic justice in all of this, but I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel joy for her suffering. I just felt a void. The void of knowing my son had chosen that woman over me. That he had preferred to please her than to respect his own mother. Friday night, while I was preparing dinner, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated to answer, but something made me pick up. Mrs. Eleanor. It was a woman's voice. Older, educated. Yes. Who is this? My name is Mrs. Sterling. Sonia Sterling. I am Kate's mother. My heart skipped a beat. Kate's mother. What would she want? Mrs. Sterling. How can I help you? I need to speak with you. In person. Could you come to my house tomorrow? It is important. What is this about? I prefer to discuss it in person. Please. It is about our children. About this terrible situation. Something in her voice made me accept. Okay. What time? Is 3 in the afternoon okay? I will send you the address by text. I accepted and hung up. What would Kate's mother want? Would she come to defend her? To attack me? To ask me to forgive everything and forget what happened? That night I barely slept. I tossed and turned in bed, thinking of all the possibilities, preparing what I would say, rehearsing the answers. I wasn't going to let myself be manipulated. I wasn't going to allow anyone to make me feel guilty for protecting myself. Saturday, I got ready carefully. I put on my best dress, the light blue one that always made me feel presentable. I combed my hair and put on light makeup. I wanted to look dignified, strong, not like the poor and embarrassed woman Kate had described. The address Mrs. Sterling sent me was for a house in the upscale part of the city, a large house with a well-kept garden, iron gate, fountain in the entrance. Everything screamed money, old money. I rang the bell, and a housekeeper opened the door. She led me through a huge living room to a back garden where Mrs. Sterling was waiting for me, seated at a wrought iron table. She stood up when she saw me. She was a woman of about 70, elegant, with perfectly coiffed hair, dressed in expensive but understated clothes. Mrs. Davis. Thank you for coming. She extended her hand. Her grip was firm. Mrs. Sterling. Please, sit down. Can I offer you something to drink? Coffee? Tea? A coffee is fine. She signaled to the housekeeper, who disappeared inside. We sat facing each other. Sonia looked at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. It wasn't hostility, but it wasn't warmth either. I know this is awkward, for both of us, she began. But I needed to talk to you. I needed to meet you. Meet me? Yes, because my daughter has told me many things about you. And, frankly, I wanted to see if they were true. I felt my body tense up. What kind of things? Kate told me that you were a difficult woman, that you were always asking for money, that you were manipulative, that you used guilt to control Michael. Sonia paused. But when I found out what actually happened, what Michael did to you, I knew my daughter was lying. The housekeeper brought the coffee. We waited in silence until she left. Does Kate know you are talking to me? No. And I would prefer she didn't know, at least not yet. Sonia picked up her teacup. My daughter has many flaws, Mrs. Davis, and I bear part of the blame. We raised her with too many comforts. We gave her everything without teaching her the value of anything. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to know that not everyone in my family is like her. Because I want to apologize for the harm my daughter has caused you. Sonia looked me directly in the eyes. And because I want to help you. I don't need your help. I know, Mr. Thompson told me you rejected Robert's offer to pay everything off. That you insisted your son pay his own debts. That speaks very well of you. Mr. Thompson told you? Robert was my brother, Mrs. Davis. I know everything that happened, and I agree with what you did. Robert was her brother. The world suddenly felt very small. When Robert told me what Michael had done, I felt ashamed. Because my daughter was part of that. Because she knew and did nothing to stop it. Worse yet, she encouraged it. She encouraged it. Sonia nodded. Kate has always been ambitious. She has always wanted more than she has. And when she married Michael, she thought she had found someone who could give her the life she wanted. But Michael doesn't have as much money as she believed. So they started living on credit, on appearances, on lies. And I was an easy source of money. Exactly. And when you no longer had more to give, he resorted to fraud. Sonia put her cup on the table. But there is something else you need to know. Something even Mr. Thompson doesn't know yet. My heart started beating faster. What? Kate is planning to divorce Michael. She already spoke with a lawyer. She wants to keep everything they can before the foreclosures start. She wants to leave him with nothing and come out clean from this situation. The words hit me like a train. Kate abandoning Michael, leaving him alone in this disaster, after pushing him to cause it. When? Soon. Very soon. She is just waiting for the right moment. The moment when she can cause the most damage. Why are you telling me this? Because you are his mother. And despite everything he has done to you, I know you still love him. And I thought you should know. Sonia leaned forward. Also because I want to propose something to you. What kind of proposal? My husband and I will pay Michael's debt, the full $25,000, but with conditions. I don't want your charity. It isn't charity. It is an investment. An investment in Michael learning his lesson without Kate taking everything. Sonia took an envelope out of her purse. We pay the debt. Michael signs a document where he commits to repaying us that money in 3 years, with interest. And you maintain control of everything until it is paid. And what do you gain from this? We gain time. Time for Michael to understand his mistakes. Time for him to get away from my daughter before she destroys him completely. Sonia pushed the envelope toward me. And you gain your house free of debt. And the possibility of recovering your son, if you still want to do so. I took the envelope. Inside was a check, $25,000, and legal documents, everything prepared, everything ready to sign. Why are you doing this? Why help your daughter's husband if you know they are going to divorce? Because my brother Robert taught me something before dying. He told me that money without dignity is worth nothing, and that sometimes doing the right thing costs money, but it is worth it. Sonia stood up. Think about it, Mrs. Davis. You don't have to decide now, but the offer is on the table. She walked me to the door. Before I left, she took my hand. One more thing. When all this ends, when Kate leaves, Michael is going to need someone. He is going to be alone, destroyed, and only you can decide if you want to be there for him, or if you prefer to let him face the consequences alone. I left that house with the envelope in my purse and 1,000 thoughts in my head. I drove back to my house in silence, thinking, calculating, feeling. When I got home, I took out the envelope and put it on the table. I looked at it for hours. The check, the documents, the easy solution to this whole problem. But none of this was about easy. It was about right. And I still didn't know what the right thing to do was. I spent all of Saturday night sleepless. The envelope with the $25,000 check was on my kitchen table. I looked at it over and over, trying to understand what was right, trying to separate what my heart wanted from what my mind knew I should do. Sunday morning, I made a decision. I called Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson, I need you to come to my house. Today, if possible. Did something happen, Mrs. Davis? Yes. Something happened, and I need your advice. Mr. Thompson arrived an hour later. I showed him the envelope. I told him about my conversation with Sonia. He read the documents carefully. His expression was serious. It is a good offer. Legally solid. You would be debt-free immediately. But I must be sure why I accept it. Do I accept it because I want to help Michael? Or because I want him to learn the lesson in the least painful way? The question hit me, because I wasn't sure of the answer. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Mr. Thompson sat across from me. Mrs. Davis, what your son did was terrible, but he is going to pay the consequences one way or another. The question is, do you want to be part of his learning process? Or do you want to walk away and let him fall alone? I'm his mother. Being a mother doesn't mean being responsible for his mistakes, nor does it mean you have to rescue him always. His words were harsh, but true. All my life I had rescued Michael, from his bad grades, from his bad decisions, from his debts. I had always been there to catch him before he fell, and maybe that was part of the problem. What would you do in my place? Mr. Thompson sighed. I would accept the offer. But not for Michael. For you. Because you deserve to live in peace, without debts hanging over your head, without having to worry about losing your house. He was right. My house, my security, that was the most important thing. Not Michael, not Kate, me. Okay, I accept. Mr. Thompson nodded. Then we need to organize a meeting, with Michael, with Sonia, to sign all the documents and make everything clear. When? How about tomorrow? Monday afternoon. In my office? Neutral? Professional? Okay. Mr. Thompson stood up. I will notify all parties. And Mrs. Davis, prepare yourself. Michael is not going to be happy when he discovers Kate's parents are paying his debt. After Mr. Thompson left, I called Susan. I needed to talk to someone who truly knew me. She came over with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. Tell me everything. I told her about Sonia, about the offer, about my decision. Susan listened to me in silence while we drank the wine. You did the right thing, Eleanor. You think? Yes. Because now you can sleep peacefully. Because your house is safe. And because you gave your son one last chance to learn. If he wastes it, it's no longer your problem. Her words gave me peace. For the first time in days, I felt I could breathe deeply. Monday arrived faster than I expected. I got ready carefully. The same light blue dress, hair well combed. I wanted to look strong, dignified, in control. I arrived at Mr. Thompson's office at 3 sharp. Sonia was already there, sitting in the waiting room with her husband. An older man, with completely white hair, serious but kind expression. They stood up when they saw me. Mrs. Davis. This is my husband, Albert Sterling. Albert extended his hand. It is a pleasure to meet you. I regret that it is under these circumstances. Me too. Mr. Thompson came out of his office. Come in, please. Michael is about to arrive. We entered a conference room. A long wooden table, leather chairs, everything very professional, very serious. We sat down. Sonia and Albert on one side, me on the other, Mr. Thompson at the head. 5 minutes later, Michael walked in. He looked terrible, deep circles under his eyes, wrinkled clothes, messy hair, as if he hadn't slept in days. He stopped dead when he saw Kate's parents. What are they doing here? Sit down. Michael. Mr. Thompson's voice was firm. We have to talk. Michael sat down slowly. His eyes went from me to Sonia and Albert. Confused, scared, Mr. Thompson put the documents on the table. Mr. and Mrs. Sterling have offered to pay your debt, the full $25,000. But there are conditions. Michael looked at Sonia. Why would you do that? Because despite everything, you are our daughter's husband. And because your mother doesn't deserve to keep suffering for your mistakes. Sonia spoke with a calm but firm voice. But this isn't a gift. It is a loan that you are going to pay back, with interest, in 3 years? I don't understand. Albert leaned forward. It's simple. We pay the debt to your mother. She becomes free and clear. You owe us. And if you don't pay, we will take legal action. Without mercy, without family considerations. Michael paled. And Kate? Does she know about this? No. And she doesn't need to know. Sonia pushed the papers toward him. This is between you, us, and your mother. Kate has nothing to do with it, but I knew Kate had everything to do with it. She was the reason for all of this. She was the one who had planted the seed of shame, of contempt, of betrayal. There is something else you should know, Michael, I said finally. Everyone looked at me. Your wife plans to divorce you, very soon. And when she does, she is going to try to keep everything she can. Michael's face completely crumbled. What? How do you know that? Because your mother-in-law told me. Because she knows what kind of person her daughter is. Michael looked at Sonia, searching for a denial. But she just nodded. It's true. Kate already hired a lawyer. She already has everything planned. She is just waiting for the perfect moment to leave you." Michael covered his face with his hands. His shoulders shook. I don't know if he was crying or just trying to process all the information. "Then this is it. I lost everything." "Not everything." My voice came out softer than expected. "You still have the opportunity to make things right, to pay your debts, to learn, to change." He looked up. His eyes were red, filled with tears. "Do you forgive me, Mom?" The question I had been waiting for. The question I had rehearsed answering 1,000 times in my mind. "I forgive you, Michael. But forgiveness does not erase consequences. You still have to pay what you owe. You still have to prove you have changed. And that is going to take time." He nodded. He took the pen Mr. Thompson extended to him, and he signed. Every document, every page, acknowledging his new debt, committing to pay, accepting the consequences. When he finished, Mr. Thompson gathered all the papers. "Good. This is done. The Sterlings will transfer the money tomorrow, and Michael has 3 years to fulfill his part." We all stood up. Sonia and Albert said goodbye. Michael stayed standing there, lost, broken. "Mom," I turned toward him. "Can I hug you?" I looked at him. At my son, at the boy I had raised, at the man who had betrayed me. And I saw in his eyes something I hadn't seen in years. Genuine regret. I opened my arms. He approached and hugged me, tight, like when he was a child and afraid of the dark. And I held him, knowing this hug didn't fix everything, but it was a start. 2 weeks after the meeting in Mr. Thompson's office, my life began to change in ways I didn't expect. The debt was paid, my house was safe, and for the first time in years, I could sleep without that constant weight on my chest. Michael called me every day. At first, I didn't answer. I needed space. I needed time to process everything. But eventually, I started answering. The conversations were short, awkward, but they were something. "Mom, Kate left," he told me one afternoon. His voice sounded hollow, empty. "When?" 3 days ago. She took everything she could, half the furniture, all her clothes, even the pictures off the walls." He paused. "She left the divorce papers on the kitchen table." I didn't feel satisfaction hearing that, just sadness. Sadness for my son who was learning the hardest lesson of his life. "Where are you living?" "In the house. But it's almost empty. I don't even have enough chairs." His voice cracked. "I have to sell the house, Mom. I can't pay the mortgage alone." "And what are you going to do?" "I don't know. Look for a smaller apartment. Something I can afford. Start over." Start over. The same words I had to use so many times in my life. When his father abandoned us, when I lost jobs, when things got difficult, always starting over. "Michael, there is something I want to tell you." "What, Mom?" "This that you are living now, this pain, this loss, is what I lived for years. Every time you excluded me, every time you lied to me, every time you treated me as if I were worth nothing." There was silence on the other end. "I know, Mom, and I'm sorry. I really am sorry. I'm sorry too. Sorry you had to get to this point to understand it." A week later, Michael knocked on my door. He was carrying a box in his hands. He looked tired but cleaner than last time, more put together. "I brought something for you." He opened the box. Inside were all the family photos Kate had taken. Photos of when Michael was a child, birthday photos, Christmas photos, photos of happy moments that seemed like another life. I went to her apartment. I asked her to give the photos back. At first, she didn't want to, but I insisted. "These photos are yours, Mom. They always were." I took the photos with trembling hands. There we were, smiling, happy, before everything got complicated. "Thank you." He sat on the sofa, the same sofa where we had had so many conversations, so many fights, so much pain. "I got a job, Mom. It doesn't pay much, but it's honest. At a construction company, office work. I'm glad. And I sold the car. I bought a used one, cheaper, more practical." He looked me in the eyes. "I'm trying, Mom. I really am trying to make things right." I saw in his eyes something I hadn't seen in a long time. Humility. Genuine humility. "Can I come visit you?" "Not every day. Just when you feel like seeing me. No pressure." I thought about it. Part of me was still angry, hurt. But another part, The part that would always be his mother wanted to give him a chance. Okay, but with conditions. Whatever they are. No more lies. No more secrets. And respect. Always respect. I promise. The following months were of slow reconstruction. Michael came to visit me on Sundays. He brought coffee and donuts. We sat in the kitchen and talked. Real conversations about his work, about his divorce, about his mistakes, about how he felt. One Sunday, he brought someone unexpected with him. Mr. Thompson, the lawyer. Mom, Mr. Thompson wants to talk to you about something important. Mr. Thompson sat with me in the living room. He took some papers out of his briefcase. Mrs. Davis, I have good news. Robert left something else in his will. Something I didn't mention before because there were legal procedures to complete. What? Robert left you $50,000 in a trust for your retirement, so you can live with dignity the rest of your days. The words made no sense. $50,000, a man I never met. Who died, protecting me? I can't accept that. It is already done, ma'am. It is legally yours. Robert was very clear in his instructions. Mr. Thompson handed me the papers. The money is in an account in your name. You can use it however you want. To repair the house, to travel, for whatever you need. The tears began to fall. But they were tears of gratitude, of relief, of hope. Why did he do all this for me? Because he saw in you something your own son couldn't see. Dignity, strength, courage. Mr. Thompson stood up. He wanted you to know that there are good people in the world, that there is still justice. After Mr. Thompson left, Michael sat next to me. You deserve this, Mom. And much more. I looked at him. At my son who was finally learning, who was finally changing. Do you know what I'm going to do with that money? What? I'm going to fix the house. The windows that need repair, the roof that leaks. Everything I stopped doing because I was always giving money to you. I took his hand, and then I'm going to travel. I'm going to see the ocean. Something I always wanted to do but never could. Michael smiled. A sad but genuine smile. That sounds perfect. And you? How are you doing with the payments to the Sterlings? I'm doing well. I'm paying punctually every month. Albert says if I keep this up, maybe I can finish paying in 2 years instead of 3. I'm glad. We sat in silence. A comfortable silence. Not like before. This was a silence of peace, of acceptance, of a new beginning. Susan knocked on the door that afternoon. She brought flowers from her garden. I heard the good news. The whole neighborhood is happy for you, Eleanor. I hugged her. This woman who had been by my side when no one else was. This true friend. Thank you for everything, Susan. For being there. For listening to me. For being my family when I had none. I'm always going to be here. Always. That night I sat on my porch, looking at the stars, feeling the cool breeze on my face. My house was safe. My future was secured. My son was learning. And I was finally at peace. It wasn't the perfect fairy tale ending. There were still scars. There was still pain. But there was something more important. There was dignity. There was respect. There was hope. And for the first time in years, I felt alive. 6 months have passed since that horrible night when Kate told me I wasn't enough to sit at a table I had paid for myself. 6 months since my world crumbled and I had to rebuild it piece by piece. And now, sitting on my porch on this Sunday afternoon, I can say I am a different woman. The house is completely renovated. The new windows let in the light without the winter cold. The roof no longer leaks when it rains. The kitchen has appliances that work. Everything I needed to fix for years is finally done. And I did it with my own money, with the gift Robert left me. A man I never met, but who saw me when my own family didn't. Michael comes every Sunday, without fail. He brings coffee and donuts as a ritual. We sit in the kitchen and talk for real. He tells me about his job, about his struggles, about how he is learning to live with less, but with more dignity. He no longer drives a luxury car. He no longer wears designer clothes. He no longer pretends to be something he isn't. And honestly, he looks better this way. More real, more human. Last week he brought me something special, an envelope with money. It's the first payment I'm making to the Sterlings ahead of schedule. I wanted you to see it. I wanted you to know I'm following through. I took the envelope and looked at it. $3,000. Earned honestly, paid punctually. I'm proud of you, son. His eyes filled with tears. That is all I ever wanted to hear from you, Mom. And I had to lose everything to deserve it. You're right. Sometimes we have to fall completely to learn how to get up the right way. Sometimes pain is the only teacher we truly listen to. Kate never appeared again. According to Michael, she got married again, to an older man, with lots of money. Exactly what she always looked for. I don't feel anger toward her, just pity. Because she will never know what real love is. She only knows love conditioned on money, on status, on appearances. Susan and I have become inseparable. She is more family to me than any blood tie. Last week we went to the beach together, my first trip in over 40 years. I felt the sand under my feet, the salty water on my skin, the sun on my face, and I cried. I cried from happiness, from freedom, from gratitude for being alive. See, Eleanor, this is what you deserve. This and more. Susan took my hand while we walked along the shore. Not constant sacrifice, not eternal pain. But moments like this, she was right. For my whole life, I believed that being a good mother meant sacrificing everything, meant not thinking about me, meant giving until I was empty. But I was wrong. Being a good mother also means teaching by example. And the example I was giving was that of a woman who let herself be trampled on. A woman without boundaries. A woman without self-worth. Now I am different. Now I have clear boundaries. Now I demand respect. And if I don't receive it, I walk away. Simple. Not with rage, not with shouting, just with the clarity of knowing what I'm worth. Mr. Thompson comes to visit me once a month. He always brings coffee and always has interesting stories from his cases. We have become friends. He tells me about his life, about his wife who died years ago, about his children who live far away, and I tell him about mine. You know, Mrs. Davis, Robert would be very proud of you, of how you handled all this. With such dignity, with such strength. I wish I could have met him, thanked him personally. He knows. Wherever he is, he knows. Sonia also became part of my life. She comes to have tea with me every 2 weeks. We talk about our children, about our mistakes as mothers, about how we try to do better, but sometimes fail. My daughter hates me now for telling Michael about the divorce. She says I betrayed her. Sonia took her teacup with trembling hands. But I don't regret it. I did the right thing. Children don't always understand when we act for their own good. Sometimes they never understand. And you? Do you regret reporting Michael? I thought about it. I really thought about it. No, I don't regret it. Because if I hadn't done it, he would still be the same man, the same liar, the same manipulator. Now he has the chance to be better, to be real. This morning, while I was making coffee for Michael's visit, I found an old photo in one of the drawers. It was from 30 years ago. I was 35. Michael was a 5-year-old boy. We were at the park, smiling. He was hugging me with those little arms, and I was looking at him as if he were my whole world. And he was. For so long he was my whole world. My reason to get up every day. My reason to work until my bones ached. My reason to exist. But that was my mistake. Because a person cannot be your entire world. You have to be your own world. And others are visitors. Some stay. Others leave. But you remain. I put the photo back in the drawer. Not with sadness, but with acceptance. That boy in the photo no longer exists. And the woman holding him doesn't either. We both had to die a little to become who we are now. The doorbell rang. It was Michael, punctual as always now. He brought the coffee and donuts, and something else. A bouquet of flowers. For you, Mom. Because it's Sunday, and because I love you. I took the flowers and smelled them. White roses, my favorites, he remembered. We sat in the kitchen. We talked about his week, about my week, about the plans each of us had. There were no more secrets, no more lies, just honest conversation between two people who were learning to know each other again. Before leaving, he hugged me. Thank you, Mom, for not giving up on me, for giving me this second chance. Thank you for finally seeing me, for finally valuing me. I watched him drive away in his used car, and I smiled. He wasn't the perfect son. He probably never would be. but he was a son who was trying. And that was enough. That night I sat on my porch as I had done so many times in these months, looking at the stars, feeling the peace that only comes after the storm. My life wasn't perfect. There were still difficult days. There were still moments of sadness. But there was also joy. There was friendship. There was dignity. There was self-love. I thought about all the women like me. Women who give everything without asking for anything. Women who let themselves be trampled because they think that is love. Women who lose their identity in the process of being mothers. And I wanted to tell them something. Something I would have liked to hear years ago. Your sacrifice is valid. But it doesn't have to be total. Your love is important, but not at the cost of your dignity. Your children are your treasure. But you also have value. And if someone makes you feel invisible, if someone treats you with contempt, if someone uses you without gratitude, you have the right to defend yourself. You have the right to say enough. You have the right to demand respect. Because true love does not humiliate. True love does not exclude. True love does not shame. And if what you receive does not look like love, then it is not love. It is something else, and you deserve better. I got up from the porch and went inside my house. My house. Safe. Paid for. Renovated. A reflection of what I myself was now. Renovated. Stronger. Clearer. More complete. Before going to bed, I looked in the mirror. I saw a 65-year-old woman, with wrinkles that told stories, with gray hair that showed wisdom, with eyes that had cried but now shone with hope. And I liked what I saw. I was no longer the woman who begged for crumbs of attention. I was no longer the woman who accepted any treatment just to not be alone. I was the woman who knew her worth, the woman who demanded respect, the woman who chose peace over drama, the woman who had finally chosen herself. And that was everything. I lay in my bed, closed my eyes, and for the first time in many years, I slept deeply, without nightmares, without worries, just with the certainty that tomorrow would be another day, and that I would be okay. Because finally, after so much time, I had learned the most important lesson of all. No one can take away your dignity unless you let them. And I wasn't letting them anymore.